What's going on, Rodeo Universe? This is Hog Trail, aka The Goat, back with another episode of Git Good, the show where I try to make you all better because I'm sick of winning so much. I'm kidding, of course. I went like 2-6 in the last round of league, so hopefully I get good as well. Anyway, our last episode was on the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. So I loaded up my superstar arsenal and I moved Dusty to the side. So let's see who we get for this episode. Arn Anderson, the superstar, perhaps the superstar I hate playing against the most. Well, let's see what we can do. Okay, here we are in the Octagon deck builder. Great source for all things raw deal. So last episode we made Dusty Rhodes face, and I think it'd be appropriate to make good old Arn Anderson a heel deck. So I loaded up my heel shell. It has the same backstage that the face shell had. No reason not to. The arsenal, on the other hand, right now it has Revolutions of the Mind, but again, Arn Anderson is a legend, much like Dusty Rhodes. So these might get swapped out for legendary defense. Don't be a douchebag, Carlito. Manager interferes, hold the phone, which will probably get cut, but we'll see if we can include it. 3, get the F out, 3 elbow, 2, don't try, Rodeo Revolution, Divine, Mr. Chance, Volley This, Cavalry. Now, card I love, you're a Jive Soul Bro. Great card, heel and cheater, 10 fortitude. Reverse any non-superstar specific non-maneuver card, draw 1 card, RFG 4 cards in your opponent's ringside. That is awesome. Sidewalk Slam, shocking interference. I know one player who this card is his least favorite card in the game. And that reason is because it's very powerful. It is a action and reversal, 12 fortitude, heal, and cheater. It's also a run-in, but it's RMS, so you can't lower the fortitude at all. Cannot be packed by the Heat Seekers and cannot be moved from your arsenal by a no-show. As an action, your opponent discards 6 cards. Wow. As a reversal, reverse any non-unique, non-superstar specific card, and he overturns until he overturns 2 reversal cards. Every part of this card is really good. And then a Candace, just to remind me that I should include some recovery in my decks. And then the backlash, this is again another place where the heel shell and the face shell are different, because heel has more, particularly more mid-match cards that they're going to want to pack. A no-show, just so you can search for a couple of heel cards if you need it. Doesn't always make the deck, but it could. Dirty Low Blow Throwback, so good. The original Dirty Low Blow was really good in Classic. But Virtual introduced a couple cards that reverse moves with reversal restrictions. There's really not much that can reverse Dirty Low Blow in the game. A couple superstar specific reversals and that 5 fortitude WCW reversal that we covered in the Dusty episode. That's really about it. So this card is almost guaranteed 2 fortitude. Unscrupulous SOB is another one from Classic. 15 fortitude, mid-match reversal. It's minus 10 fortitude when your superstar value is less than your opponent's superstar value. Reverse any non-unique action or activated card effect and end your opponent's turn. That's awesome. Ace reversals can oftentimes be very handy for you, and people will play around this card because everyone packs it. And outside interference, 11 fortitude, mid-match, reversal run-in. Can only be played if you have a pre-match manager or the cards titled Manager Interferes or Backstage Politics in your ring area. Reverse any maneuver and end your opponent's turn. I include this in every heel deck, even if I don't have a pre-match manager. Eventually, I'm going to get Manager Interferes into my ring. It's too good not to include. All right, so on to Arn Anderson. Superstar logo contains Arn and So Arn himself doesn't have many cards, but as you'll see, he can pack some other fun stuff. All right, Arn Anderson, 4 hand size, 4 superstar value. He is a WCW legend, much like Dusty in the last video. His superstar ability is your first buster, breaker, or knee maneuver each turn is WCW -4 fortitude and +4 damage. That's good. We'll go over the maneuvers that he affects in a second, but on the surface, that's good. It goes on. You may play hybrid reversals as if they are D0 and or non-hybrid. And when you do, and that reversal is not superstar specific, it deals a maximum of 4 damage. So this lets him play pain reversals to Vicky protected maneuvers. A couple of superstar specifics can only be reversed by D0 or can only be reversed by non-hybrid cards. This lets him spinebuster his opponent all day long with very little restriction. And you can pack non-spike brainbuster cards, and they are now WCW. All right, so let's open a new tab. Superstar logo contains busters. We'll look at them in a minute. Double-A, WCW backstage area. Your first WCW maneuver each turn cannot be reversed from backlash. And again, he makes buster, breakers, and knee maneuvers, WCW. During your turn, you may put outsmarting the competition from your backlash or ringside into your ring. That card is permanent, cannot be blanked, and when activated, it cannot be reversed. We'll look at that card in a second. During any player's turn, when you successfully play a WCW card, you may either shuffle up to 2 cards or up to 4 non-reversal cards from your ringside into your arsenal. This card is silly. Now, I know I'm building Arn Anderson, but I'm also going to use this platform to say, I think he does way too much. This card alone gives him like 8 effects. The Enforcer, WCW pre-match event, cannot be blanked. Your pre-match capacity is +2. When this card is in your ring, your cards with legendary in the title are -4 fortitude and ignore the can only be played text. Your classic DDT is now a trademark finisher, and replace the Brainbusters text on your Once the Horseman, Always the Horseman and Arsenal cards with Arn Anderson. Nothing too crazy about this card. It just gives him some good effects. Classic DDT is a card that we will most likely be throwing into this deck. Hopefully I remember to include that later. Oh, okay. Here's where I might go on a rant. Adversity introduces a man to himself. WCW mid-match reversal, 4 fortitude, 4 damage. Reverse any non-trademark finisher maneuver. Draw up to 4 cards and put the same number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your arsenal. That alone would be an amazing card. However, it continues. When this card is in your ring, your opponent's printed Fortitude 4 or more maneuvers are +4 fortitude. His volley cards are volley -4. Discard 1 less card to play reversals to his chain cards. And he must have an additional 4 heat cards in his ringside to play heat cards from ringside. There's a lot there. So let's say Arn Anderson is playing against a bash deck. That makes bash punch 8 fortitude. So unless your opponent hits another maneuver or somehow gets enough reversal damage, they're not going to be playing many moves against Arn once this card hits the table. If your opponent's volley -4 isn't huge, but it's enough. Discard 1 less card to play reversals to chain cards. That's great. And especially with the shenanigans that lets you overturn when you have 4 or fewer cards. So Arn could just overturn one card to play reversals. And then to have 4 additional heat cards in your ringside to play heat cards from ringside, heat's already bad enough, and this makes it even worse. So if you're a heat deck and went into Arn Anderson, you might as well just quit. Oh, wait, there's more. During his turn, when this card is in your ring, he may RFG his top 4 arsenal cards, and then you put this card into your ringside. You might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, at least I can get rid of this card if I am one of those things. And then I'll remind you that Arn Anderson has a couple cards that allows him to put backlash cards from his ringside back into his backlash deck. And also cards like Coach says today's the day exists to put it back into your backlash deck. So your opponent might run into this card a few times if he really needs this card out of your ring. I hate this card. I hate this card. It does way too much. I will never not say that this card does way too much. If it was just the first effect, it would still be a very good card, especially when you consider Arn Anderson has access to Halloween Havoc, which can give him 3 fortitude to start the game. So then he just needs 1 fortitude to play this card. It's ridiculous. It's silly, and I hate it. Double-A Spinebuster. 40 fortitude, trademark finisher / reversal. It is 20 damage and WCW. As a maneuver, this card is -10 fortitude, and when played as a counter, it is multi. It can only be reversed by 2 D0 reversals. Great. As a reversal, when played from hand, reverse any non-unique grapple. When you are Arn Anderson, you may instead reverse any strike, grapple, or submission, and your opponent discards 2 random cards. So since we are Arn Anderson and we are not the 4 Horsemen, this card basically will almost always be played as a reversal. It reverses the 3 most popular maneuver types, and you cannot reverse reversal damage. So you kind of want to do the full 20. As a maneuver, it does have a really good reversal restriction. And even if your opponent spins Divine Intervention, it won't fully reverse it. But the reversal is too good. Oh, and also remember that it's WCW. And that means your opponent will discard a card for the WCW Allegiance. And it also means that you will either shuffle up to 2 cards from your ringside into your arsenal or 4 non-reversal cards from your ringside into your arsenal. Yeah, Arn Anderson does so much. Oh, and going back to this card too, this card also makes your opponent discard a card and also lets you shuffle in 2 or 4 non-reversals. So yeah, that's just Arn Anderson's mini promo set. Now let's see what he gets from the Brainbusters. Once a Horseman, always a Horseman. Pre-match event cannot be blanked. At the end of the pre-match phase, you draw 4 cards, and when you are not the Brainbusters, put 4 cards from your hand on the bottom of your arsenal. So remember, Arn Anderson changes this to when you are not Arn Anderson. So Arn Anderson just draws 4 cards, and that's it. And then the next effect isn't relevant because it only affects Ric Flair or the 4 Horsemen. So this card is basically the end of the pre-match, draw 4 cards. And having this card in your ring also allows you to play a couple other cards that we'll look at a bit later. Tear you down like a Minnesota wrecking crew. Cannot be packed when packing corners, cannot be blanked. When you are Arn Anderson and your 4 Horsemen specific cards do not take up pre-match slots in your ring, your opponent's pre-match cards would look at his hand in the text are blank. Once during each of your turns, when you are Arn Anderson, I guess, once during any turn, you may discard any number of backlash cards. Your next card played is -4 fortitude for each card put into your ringside. Does he get this card? I really hope he doesn't. You can pack non-spike Brainbusters cards. That's disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. Okay, correction. He doesn't change the text of this. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. So he gets your opponent's pre-match cards would look at his hand and the text are blank. And he can do the ace during his turn, but not during his opponent's turn. So while this card is typically, for the 4 Horsemen, it's really good. For the Brainbusters, it's kind of silly. For Arn Anderson, it actually doesn't do a whole lot, but it is a WCW card. So at the very least, during the pre-match, it can make your opponent discard a card. And it also would blank cards like I'm going to break you or throwback Fans of an Underdog. So this card will probably get packed in this deck, but it's not a must-have. Arn's Abdominal Stretch. It's a multi-submission, 12 fortitude, 8 damage, and it has 1 stun. As a maneuver, it's -8 fortitude and cannot be reversed from backlash. So that makes it a 4 fortitude multi-submission. As a reversal, this card is -4 damage, reverse any strike or grapple, and your opponent discards 1 card. That's really good. When successfully played, either as a maneuver or as a reversal, put 1 backlash card from your ringside into your backlash deck. Remember what I said about Arn having a couple cards that lets him recover mid-match cards? There you go. There's one of them. This card will, again, almost always be played as a reversal. It's not bad as a maneuver, but it's really good as a reversal. And it's WCW. He makes it WCW. So it's, again, another card that makes your opponent discard a card, and as a reversal makes him discard another card. And it allows you to recover 2 cards or 4 cards. Hung Out to Dry, Horseman style. This is another silly good card. As a reversal, reverse any non-superstar specific non-maneuver card. When successfully played, put 1 backlash card from your ringside into your backlash deck. There's that line again. At 8 fortitude, this basically makes your opponent unable to play actions for fear of this card going into your ring. A 12 damage reversal that Arn gets very easily. He has to get it into his hand. So that's the only downside, is that he's not guaranteed to have this card in his hand. But it reverses any non-superstar specific non-maneuver card. There's no reason to play this card as a maneuver. There's absolutely no reason to do that. And it does a full 12 damage, which is silly. It brings you to at least 20 fortitude. And then at that point, Arn just takes over the game and the opponent can't do anything. He doesn't get to pack this card because it has Spike in the title. Arn's Gourd Buster. It's a grapple, 0 fortitude, 5 damage, 1 stun. When played, you may choose to make this card +3 damage. If you do not, it cannot be reversed by Revolution of the Mind. So basically, you choose, do you want it not to be reversed by elbow or not to be reversed by grapple? When successfully played, you may discard 3 cards. If you do, then shuffle 1 card from your ringside into your arsenal and put 1 backlash card from your ringside into your backlash. There's that line again. So this card isn't amazing. It's not bad, but I'm not sure if we'll be packing this. It is WCW, so he gets all the WCW bonuses from it. It will probably make it in, but it's a card that you don't have to pack. Superior Brain Power. Mid-match, or not mid-match, sorry. Reversal, special, 15 fortitude. Before playing this card, your opponent's played maneuver is blank. Reverse any non-unique maneuver, draw 2 cards, and shuffle 2 cards from your ringside into your arsenal. So if your opponent plays German suplex with its own text protection, You can play this card from your hand because before it's played, his German is blanked, and then it reverses it. You draw 2, shuffle in 2. Opponent discards a card, and then you get to shuffle in 2 or 4 more. This is a balanced card. Its fortitude cost is high enough that it doesn't anger me. I have no problems with this card. Double-A Spinebuster. We're definitely going to pack the original one. This one is just a much smaller version of the other one. So I guess if you're playing an Arn Anderson deck that isn't planning on getting a lot of fortitude, you might want this card. I run this version in my 4 Horsemen deck because that deck doesn't always have a ton of fortitude to work with. But we are definitely going to be running the throwback, so we're not going to use this one. Outsmarting the competition. This is the card that Arn Anderson gets for free anytime during his turn, and it's permanent. Ace. Once during each of your turns, you may have your opponent reveal 2 random cards in his hand, and then either choose 1 card from your hand, shuffle it in, and draw 1, or choose 1 of your opponent's revealed cards. He shuffles that card into his arsenal and draws 1. So this gives Arn hand knowledge on a small scale for the entire game for free. He has nothing to worry about. And also, when this card gets put into your ring, opponent discards a card because it's a WCW card. So at the very, very, very least, it's a free discard. And then it's, for the most of the game, it's free hand knowledge, and it lets Arn cycle 1 card a turn if he wants, or 1 card of his opponent's hand. The Heenan family, we are probably not going to pack this. I need to refresh myself. Does he? All right, so he does. He can pack this card, and it doesn't do anything special particularly for him. It's a good card, so I'll read it. It's a WWF faction. It actually can be packed by any superstar. You are now a Heenan family member. You're managed by Bobby the Brand Heenan is permanent. And when looking at your arsenal for that card, you can put both cards on the bottom instead. When your logo is printed on this card, or you have another card with Heenan family in the text in your ring, your unique reversals are not affected by your opponent's card effects. So that means your all of Arn's hybrid reversals would do full damage regardless of any card effects your opponent has. So Arn Anderson's logo is not printed on this. The Brainbusters logo is printed on this. So he would have to have another Heenan card in his ring. I don't think we'll be packing this card. I think our pre-match is probably going to be a little crowded anyway, since we are a WCW superstar. And I'll get it out of the way now. Arn Anderson is the best WCW superstar in the game, and it's by a pretty large margin. So I don't think we're going to be using this card. Legendary Ring Smarts. Your opponent reveals his hand, choose up to 2 cards. He puts the chosen cards on the bottom of his arsenal and draws 1 card. When he is a tag team or a stable, you may choose 1 additional card, and then you draw 2. Arn also makes this a WCW card, so you get the opponent discard, and you can shuffle in 2 or 4. However, this card just isn't good enough. It's really not good enough for the Brainbusters either. I don't think I've ever packed this card. So I see no reason to include this. I think I'd rather have Hold the Phone instead of this card. So that's my thought process. And the Heenan family workhorses cannot be packed by Arn Anderson, so he doesn't get that. So I think it's fair to say that Arn Anderson is really good, and he has access to really good cards. And in my opinion, he has too many effects for one superstar. Again, I've been vocal in my disdain for Arn Anderson. Like, I don't think he's the best superstar in the game overall, but he's the superstar I probably dread playing against more than anyone. He does too much too easily. All right, well, let's get started building this deck. We'll put our superstar card there. Double-A. The Enforcer as a pre-match. Adversity. Great reversal. That goes into our backlash. Double-A Spinebuster. We'll go there. I'm going to get the Revos out of here now because we won't be using them. Once a Horseman. Of course, love that card. Minnesota Wrecking Crew. I'll put it in for now. It might come out, but I'll put it in for now. Arn's Ab Stretch. Absolutely. Hung Out to Dry. Absolutely. Gourd Buster. I'll include it for now, but it might come out. Superior Brain Power. Yes. We're not using that one. Outsmarting the competition. Absolutely. We'll put that there because it's the first card that'll go into our ring during the game. Heenan Family, no. Legendary Ring Smarts, no. Workhorses, no. All right. So we can close out of that tab. So we only have 32 cards on our arsenal right now. That gives us a lot of room to play around with. So first things first, Arn's a legend. So let's go with format. So there's a joke between me and my Octagon play group where if you want to filter out all the Revolution cards, you do format contains ass. That way it only contains the classic format, so you don't get any Revolution cards. Superstar logo equals nothing. Card text, legend. We went over a lot of these cards in the last one, so I'm not going to spend too much time. In my day, a maneuver was a maneuver. Great card. Cowboy Bob, great card. We're not going to pack any of these. Here's managed by Bobby Heenan if you were going to use that Heenan family card. It's good, but we're going to be using legendary defense, so we won't be able to pack a manager. We're not going to use Freddie Blassie. So Arn is a legend, so he would get the bonus of this. But if you're building Arn and you're not making him WCW, you're doing it wrong. Legendary defense, that will absolutely go in. All right, Living the Good Life is just a good card, so that's going to go in. So Living the Good Life, while it is a really good card, we're already have a pretty crowded min-match, so it might. Through all these years is free, so there's no reason not to include it. And now, since we just put in legendary defense, don't forget to include your base reversals, which I have done before. Step aside, escape move, break. All right. What else? WCW. Let's take a look at the WCW cards. Ready to rumble? Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to make the executive decision. I'm going to take Candace out. Arn Anderson has plenty of built-in recovery that he doesn't really need a whole lot more. Where the big boys play, this is the cornerstone of any Arn Anderson deck. We went through it in the last video. Basically, when a WCW card gets put into your ring, your opponent discards one. That's big. Even if you never use the ace of this card, that effect alone, especially with Arn Anderson, is huge. Great deal of confusion. That is just a great reversal, so that'll go in. Halloween Havoc, absolutely, we're making room for Halloween Havoc. The potential to start with 3 Fortitude, meaning I only need 1 Fortitude to play that nasty reversal. Yeah, we're definitely doing that. Monday Nitro, of course. Might as well wreck your opponent's hand a little bit more. Chaos and Pandemonium. So in the last video, I said I don't really like this card. However, Arn Anderson makes WCW cards really good. So for now, I'm going to include this card. It might not make the final cut, but for now, it's going in there. So the WCW belt, this is interesting because I will have a card with the Ric Flair logo in my ring. So I'll get the full bonus of the WCW belt. However, I'm not going to be playing a whole lot of actions, and I'm not anticipating it. I'm already at 39 cards, and I typically want to start putting maneuvers into my deck around when I have 20 cards left. And I just don't see having a lot of non-unique actions in here. So in this instance, I don't think I'll be playing the WCW belt. It might be something I come back to if I have an open pre-match slot, because it is another WCW card. So at the very least, it'll make opponent discard an extra card for like Monday Nitro. But for now, I'm going to leave it out. All right, so we're at 39 cards right now. So that's a good start. So Buster, Breaker, and Knee maneuvers. Let's look those up. Buster. Gut Buster. Oh, look at that. It's 4 Fortitude. Atomic Face Buster is also 4 Fortitude. Something else about these cards is that they are blank. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? We'll keep that thought. Brainbuster, the card's not very good. Spinebuster is good, but the throwback one is better, in my opinion. This card does overturn, it does reverse from Arsenal, but it only reverses grapples. So Facebuster Suplex, not worth it. We're not going to be packing high risks. So it's really not worth it. 2 stun's nice, but it's not worth it. Running Spinebuster is fine. This one, not as much. All right, Gutbuster on the top rope. Here's another great card. Cannot be reversed when the card titled Gutbuster is in your ring area. And when played after Gut Wrench, your opponent's reversals are plus an additional 10 Fortitude. So we already talked about Gutbuster. So if you get a Gutbuster into your ring, Arn Anderson can play this card immediately, and it's 12 damage that cannot be reversed, and it's WCW. We're absolutely going to be building around that. Atomic Spinebuster. It's a good card. It's I wouldn't fault you if you put it in your Arn. I'm not sure it's going to make it into this one, but we'll see. Spinebuster, throwback. We will absolutely be packing 3 Spinebusters. This Brainbuster is better, but it's still a pretty vanilla grapple, so we might not be packing it. He makes it 4 Fortitude and 13 damage, which is a great ratio. When successful, look at your opponent's backlash deck, choose a non-unique card, and he discards it. He would also make a WCW, so then he would recover 2 or 4, and opponent would discard another one. It's good, but I don't know if it's going to make it. Running Spinebuster throwback is 4 Fortitude, so he can make it 0. When this card's in your ring, you can put it into your ringside and then shuffle up to 2 other ringside cards into your arsenal. This card might make it in just because it can prove to be very helpful in certain situations. And I anticipate us drawing a blank, and that helps when you have lower Fortitude. So if this card can remove its own Fortitude, it can help with drawing a blank deck. So we'll leave it out for now, but we'll come back to it. However, I am going to put 3 Gutbusters, 3 Atomic Face Busters, and 3 Gutbusters on the top rope. So we're at 51 cards right now. Let's look at the breakers. Backbreaker. Oh, look at that. Another blank maneuver. Thank you very much. Shoulder breaker, not great, not worth it. Knee breaker, not great, not worth it. This swinging neck breaker isn't good. This neck breaker is decent. And it would make opponent discard 2 cards when successful, but it doesn't quite fit our theme, so I don't think it's going to make it. This rib breaker is not very good. Double underhook backbreaker has some sneaky potential because he makes it 11 damage. But having to put 2 cards from your hand on top of your arsenal is kind of steep. So I don't think we're going to include that. This is also my favorite card from Classic Raw Deal because it's just an upside down hip toss. Backbreaker Torture Rack, it's RMS, so we're not going to bother with it. Hangman's Neckbreaker, on the other hand, this is good. I don't know if it'll make it into our deck because we're not going to be running. Well, let me read it. When played after the card title from the top rope can only be reversed by cards that specifically reverse a maneuver that is played after from the top rope. So we're not going to be packing from the top rope. So that text won't be relevant to us. But the text that is relevant, when this card is in your ring area and you successfully play a grapple, your opponent discards one card. So if we were packing this card and it's in our ring and we play a Gutbuster, opponent will discard one card for this text and one card for the WCW Allegiance. It's not guaranteed to hit, but if it does hit, then your opponent's in for a hard time. Armbreaker, we'll get back to this one because I don't know if we're going to have enough room for 3 of the throwbacks. So we might end up going with this one since it's 0 fortitude anyway. Rib breaker, short arm rib breaker is RMS, so we're not going to worry about it. Snap neck breaker is heat, but it is blank. So maybe we do look at this. I'll put 1 in there just to remind me. Okay, arm breaker. Submission, 3 fortitude, 3 damage. When this card is in your ring area, your opponent discards 1 card in order to play an action. That is a cost your opponent must play in order to play an action. That's really good. This card is so oppressive. I'm going to throw 1 into the arsenal right now. If we have room for more, we're definitely going to pack more. If we don't have room for more, then we're going to swap it out for the throwback, for the non-throwback, since it's 4 fortitude. So it'll just be 8 damage. So it'll be out of elbow range. Rib breaker, not super great, not relevant to this deck. We already have the other backbreaker in it, so we're not going to use that. This knee breaker isn't tremendous. It's just a big strike. Swinging neck breaker, throwback. So as a maneuver, it's -4, and then we make it an additional -4. So it would be a 0 fortitude maneuver. As reversal, reverse any maneuver with suplex in the title. Unfortunately, the only really the only maneuver with suplex in the title that gets thrown around a lot is German suplex. And you won't be playing this to German suplex. So we probably won't be using this card. Pendulum Backbreaker is a chain card, and chain is always good. So we're going to put 1 in there just to remind ourselves that it exists. Wrist Breaker, not worth it. Ankle Breaker, which is a good card, but not so much for Arn Anderson. Rolling Neck Breaker cannot be reversed by hybrids, which is decent. And it reverses dynamics, which if your opponent's a dynamic deck is great. But overall, it's really not worth it for us. Precision Reverse Neck Breaker. So Arn could make this card 0 fortitude since it's already -4. And its text is you can remove up to the top 5 cards of your arsenal, and it's -2 fortitude for each card removed. However, that's a pretty steep cost, and you're just going to get reversed by, actually, no, he won't get reversed by Reach Grasp because it cannot be reversed from backlash. So if your opponent already uses restricted use and Reach Exceed your Grasp, you could potentially play a big old precision reverse neck breaker, but that cost is so high, and I don't think we'll have a lot of room to use cards that recover RFG cards. And dynamic backbreaker, again, if you're a dynamic deck, this is one of the better moves, but we're not. Oh, I did just remember something before we get to the knee maneuvers. There are a couple cards that the Horsemen superstars can pack that doesn't have their logos. So this is one of them. Horsemen Have My Back. It's a 16 fortitude, 4 damage, cheater reversal. Reverse any non-unique, non-hybrid maneuver, or when once a horseman, always a horseman is in your ring, it's -4 fortitude and reverse any non-hybrid maneuver instead. and then you put 4 cards from your ringside on the bottom. This card is a good reversal when you don't have Once a Horseman in your ring. And when you do have Once a Horseman in your ring, it is a really good reversal. So that's going in. And Horsemen have something to say about that. Is one of the best mid-match cards in the game. That is going in. When Once a Horseman, Always a Horseman is in your ring during your opponent's turn, when he successfully plays a D4 or greater card, you can put this card from your backlash into your ring and his turn ends. And when this card is in your ring, before each of his draw segments, he overturns 2. And during his turn, he can overturn 4 cards and put this card into your ringside. So since it's before his turn, before his draw segment, he cannot reverse on his turn. And when this card is in your ringside, you can discard 4 cards and put it back into your backlash. And remember, Arn Anderson has all those cards that lets him pick up mid-match cards. All right, let's go back to knee maneuvers. I don't think there's a ton that we're going to be using, but we're going to look anyway. Knee smash becomes a 0 fortitude high risk, but it still has that can only be played text, so we're not going to use it. Knee lift is not good. Knee breaker, we already said is not good. Working on the knee, not good. Knee bar, it's 0 fortitude, but it's not worth it. Knee lock is 0 fortitude, but it's not worth it. Atomic knee drop is interesting because it's a really good card. However, I don't know if we're going to be a SmackDown deck. And let's be honest, we're going to be throwing some pretty big maneuvers. So we might not ever get a chance to play this card. I wouldn't be upset if you put this into your Arn Anderson decks, but for me, I don't think it's going to make it. So we'll leave it out for now. This knee lift, I mean, it's just a 5 damage strike, which for Arn Anderson would make a 9 damage strike. The reversal is good, but it only works when you have less fortitude, and it only reverses non-uniques. So I think we're going to end up skipping it. Knee breaker, we already went over that. Working on the knee, it's not that great. It's really just a multi-grapple submission. Precision knee drop for Arn Anderson is pretty good because he can play it at what, 4 fortitude, I think. But again, it has that can only be played text, and we're going to be throwing some big moves, so I think we're going to end up skipping this card. 3 stun value is really nice though. Dynamic knee lift, again, if you're a dynamic deck, which we're not, fine, but thrust knee lift. Oh, okay. That's a really good card. We have 2 arsenal slots left. Okay. And classic knee of the groin, which is another card that I love. So a high risk that requires very little setup is very good. So we are going to be putting that into our arsenal. I would like to include more thrust knee lifts, but we might just not have the room for it, to be totally honest, because we still have these cards here that we're not sure if we're going to be using. So right now, what do we have that we can play at 0 fortitude? We have Gutbuster and we have Atomic Facebuster that we can play at 0 fortitude. We also have Arn's Gourd Buster, which again, we can take out. So that could open up more slots for us. So I think I'm going to make the executive decision, and I'm going to take out the Gourd Buster. Whoops, I don't want 2 spine. Well, I do want 2 spine busters, but that would be illegal. So we have 58 cards. Hold the phone again. I really want to keep it, but do we have the room for it? We can probably cut 1 sidewalk slam since we do get a great deal of confusion. So now we're at 57. So I already said arm breaker is really good. So I'm going to make that 3 arm breakers. So now we're at 59 cards. So if I have less fortitude, I can play this at 0, and it is chained. So it'll make opponent have to discard 2 cards, which is good. But, I don't know. Snap Neckbreaker being printed 0 Fortitude does help a little bit, but it's heat. So if it ends up in my ringside, it's going to burn itself. So I think we're going to get rid of it. Leaves us 2 more cards to throw in 2 more Pendulum Backbreakers. And that's 60. I mean, is that it? Is that our deck? It might be. Chaos and Pandemonium again. I don't mind it in this case. So we'll see. All right, so let's get to our Backlash deck, which we already started a little bit. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards in there right now. No show. We have enough heat cards that we could, or heal cards, excuse me, that we could justify packing it. So for now, I'm going to keep it in, but let's count how many slots we have. And I don't think Arn doesn't give free slots. So we don't have to worry about that, but he does. His own pre-match gives him +2. Okay, so let's see. Big Boys takes up a slot. Havoc and Nitro do not. Horsemen does. Wrecking Crew does, because we are not the Brainbusters. The Enforcer gives us +2. Through all these years doesn't count. And a no-show would let us play another card if we choose so. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. Right now we have 3 ring slots, which leaves us 3 available slots. Now let's look up card type contains pre. Show us all the pre-match cards. And a card I brought up earlier is drawing a blank. This is going to be the backbone of this deck. Cannot be blanked, and no other card can gain this card's text. Your cards with psychology in the title are blank. During your turn, when you have equal or lower fortitude, and your first card played from hand is a non-bash, non-multi, non-revolution maneuver with blank text, it cannot be reversed by non-unique reversals from hand or ringside. The next effect isn't relevant to us because we don't have a blank superstar. So let's look. Gutbuster, Atomic Facebuster are both blank. So this would mean they are protected by drawing a blank when we have lower fortitude. So they already cannot be reversed with Backlash from Double-A. So this will mean opponent either has to use his restricted use in this area to get rid of those restrictions, or he has to have a unique reversal in his hand in order to make it so these cards are not successful. So that's kind of the way that we're going to be going. So I'm going to add drawing a blank in there right now. So now we have 2 slots to work with. Now let's take a look. Anything off the top of my head? Oh, one card that I forgot to mention during the Dusty video is one of the big boys. This is a card that I will retroactively be putting into that Dusty Rhodes. Cannot be blanked and cannot be packed when packing cards, pre-match cards with McMahon in the title. Overturn 6 cards. At the end of the pre-match phase, put 1 non-unique card from your ringside into your hand. When this card is in your ring, your opponent's non-unique, non-superstar specific reversals deal no more than 1 damage. And when you are a WCW superstar and you have greater fortitude, once during each of your turns, you may put 1 card from under a WCW card on the bottom of your arsenal. So where the big boys play and Halloween Havoc both have effects that put cards under it. And if you ever want those cards back, you can use one of the big boys to do that for free. So that's going in. So that gives us 1 available slot. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 1 available slot. And if we want, we can put in a card with a no-show. So we're not going to be packing any of these. Let's see. What I'd like to do sometimes is look up, so the pre-match phases, we already have an allegiance, but we don't have a venue or a feud or a stip or a manager. So I like to go in order. So we just have an allegiance right now. So let's look at venue. Most of these aren't very good. Some of them are very good. Let's see if any of them fit what we're trying to do. Denville's not bad, but we have some hybrid reversal, so it doesn't really work for us. Dallas is really good, but you kind of have to plan around it if you're going to use it. Parts Unknown could be interesting because it deals with blank cards, but we don't want to give our opponent any more hand size. Baghdad, Iraq is also a good card in general, but it doesn't really work for us. So Your Town is a card that I really like. It can be very disruptive to your opponent. However, I'm not sure. So my thought process is this. I'm torn between Your Town and I'm torn between Bitter Rivals. So Arn Anderson has a 4 superstar value. So making it so your opponent with a lower superstar value cannot play title belts is really good, especially against like the era of the superstar females, or even someone who uses the hardcore title or the ECW throwback title. Not allowing people to play title belts can be really helpful. So right now I'm going to add that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And how many take up slots? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's look up a card we could put in with a no-show. So a no-show needs non-active, non-unique. So let's go with traits. Does not contain active, and traits does not contain unique. I like to start at the bottom because better cards were made near the end of the game. Love of the game could start with 2 Fortitude, but it's not really worth it for us because we kind of want to be behind early. However, it would put us in range for, oh wait, no, never mind. Forget I said that because we're going to be playing Bitter Rivals. So opponent probably won't have 2 cards of title belt in the text in their ring. Let's see. Any of these cards, Find Out How to Fight from Finley is good, but I don't think it does much for us. Interest Fairness, no. High Fives, no. Frankie takes Holywood. That would give our reversals RMS. However, that would remove the WCW logo from some of them, so I'm going to say no, thank you. We're not a volley deck. We're not a precision deck. We're technically not Raw or SmackDown, but we won't have a lot of mid-match, so we might end up being SmackDown just to justify not packing King Interferes, but we'll get back to that. No. We're not chain. There's not going to be title belts. We could add damage, which is fine. We don't have a lot of action, so we're not going to be able to use rules are meant to be broken too much. Distractingly Divalicious is good to deal with NWO poison, but I don't think we gain too much from it. Always on Top won't really help us. Not Today Cupcake. No, it's too specific. Stun the Crowd. Do we have a lot of stun value? No, we have barely any stun value, so we're not going to worry about that. Oh, and Stun the Crowd's active now, so never mind. Yeah, none of these are really jumping out at me. Showtime, I mean, if opponent's not getting title belts and we're already at 4, we're likely going to go first. Snubbed by the fans? No. Let's see. This is when we're getting to the more recent cards. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, alternatively, we can just look up a card that doesn't take up a slot and see what that brings up. That might be the way to go, because none of these really work for this deck. Interest of Fairness isn't bad, but we're going to have a handful of reversals, so probably won't be worth it. Yeah, so I think we're just going to, I mean, who's cooler than Michelle McCool is pretty good. We'll keep that in mind, but let's just look at card text contains slot. We're not face. Ruthless Aggression isn't a bad card. We already have a pay-per-view event, so we're not going to be using Night of Champions. Freddie Blassie, the Maker of Champions, we can play that, but we aren't going to have a title belt to put into our ring. So I don't think. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be using Freddie, because we'll have to take out another card to put in a title belt. We could take out a no-show. I liked the idea of searching for classic knee to the groin with no-show, just to give us a move to play early, but let's see. Is it worth putting in a title belt in order to really make sure that we start first, or no? None of the other cards here really do anything for me. All right, so let's look at title belts with World Wrestling Federation in the title. Federation, here's all the belts. So the +3 belt, the +2 belt, the +1 belt, they don't do much other than increase your value. Can't pack the tag belts. This hardcore belt isn't worth it. We're not a high-risk deck, so that won't do anything. We're not a female. This card gives you +3, but it really only is worth it if you're using Back to Basics. This hardcore belt, on the other hand, is really good and would make our moves minus an additional 2 fortitude. So that would help us play something like classic knee to the groin at 0, or it would make our throwback arm breakers +1 damage to get them out of elbow range. Having said all that, I think I'm just going to go with the Michelle McCool, because if it's coming in at the end, your opponent has already probably played 12 pre-match, so they're going to be discarding a mid-match card. And that's good. But discarding, making your opponent discard mid-match cards is always good. So let's look at the mid-match. I mean, we're out of backlash slots already, so we might not have any room to include anything. Road to Victory, Living the Good Life are our most cuttable cards, but since we've just committed to SmackDown and we are cheater, we don't have many options in terms of mid-match reversals, and I think I'm going to keep it that way. So we're gonna say that the deck is finished now. I'll include the list in the comments, in the description. I mean, again, I think Arn Anderson is way too much. I know it's hard to kind of retroactively make superstars worse once they've already been made so good. I just think he has about 3 superstars worth of effects in 1 superstar. I just think it's too much. But that's the deck. That's the video. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. share it with all your raw deal friends, and we'll see how it goes. I will let you know in a future video when I eventually play this deck, and I'll let you know how it went. Thank you.